So let's just dive right into this. Imagine for a second, what if your home cost exactly $0 to run and literally never needed repairs? Today, we're challenging the modern standard. This idea of buying complex machines that are practically designed to break just so we can fix houses that were essentially designed to fail from the start.
We're essentially contrasting two completely different worlds here. On one side, you have the brute force modern home. This is a setup that constantly degrades, demands absolute grid dependency, and relies on these 15-year material lifespans that pretty much guarantee you'll be paying constant monthly bills forever. But on the flip side, the autonomous home. We're talking about elegant, permanent solutions. Structures that are disaster-proof, utilize zero-watt physics, and boast lifespans measured in centuries, not decades. Absolute independence.
To get there, here's our blueprint for today. We'll cover the indestructible shell, climate control without power, generating unlimited free energy, water from thin air, and finally, the barrier to independence. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the indestructible shell. Now, instead of using chemical pressure-treated lumber that fails in 15 years and leaches toxic arsenic into your soil, consider yakisugi. This is an absolutely brilliant 18th century Japanese technique that uses pyrolysis, which is just controlled fire, to essentially burn away the cellulose that termites and fungi love to feed on. It permanently protects cedar siding with a simple, completely free application of flame. It leaves behind a pure carbon shield, making the wood fire-resistant, rot-proof, and insect-proof for up to 100 years. And when it comes to the actual structure, a monolithic dome completely dwarfs your conventional wood frame because it uses the continuous, arching catenary curve of a one-piece steel-reinforced concrete dome. It distributes loads perfectly. This creates an unbelievably energy-efficient shell that can literally survive a 5,000-pound bomb, EF5 tornadoes, and Category 5 hurricanes. For real, it's that tough. Plus, you're looking at 50 to 75% lower energy bills, absolutely zero roof replacements, and again, a lifespan measured in centuries. Moving right along to Section 2, climate control without power. So how do we cool this place? Well, a solar chimney acts as a totally silent atmospheric engine, and the concept is actually rooted in 3,000-year-old Persian architecture. It's a simple three-step process. Step 1, the sun hits the absorber plate on the chimney, heating the air inside. Step 2, thanks to the ideal gas law, which just means hot air expands and gets lighter, that heated air rises rapidly and escapes out the top exhaust. And Step 3, this powerful upward draft creates negative pressure, which forces the house to naturally inhale geothermally cooled air from an underground earth tube. It's amazing. This can drop indoor temperatures by up to 17 degrees Fahrenheit and give you 8 to 12 fresh air changes every single hour. And for even more passive cooling, you can use a simple roof turbine ventilator. You might know them as whirlybirds. It uses the Bernoulli principle to catch the wind and pull superheated air right out of your attic. Independent testing shows this simple addition can reduce peak attic temperatures by up to 37 degrees. That slashes your cooling costs by nearly 15%, and it doesn't use a single watt of power. But what about when it gets cold? Well, for winter heating, we have the rocket mass heater. This system utilizes secondary combustion. That means it literally burns off its own smoke and exhaust to burn simple twigs at incredibly high temperatures. That superheated exhaust is then routed through a massive cob thermal bench. It burns 90% less wood than a standard fireplace. And get this, that cob bench will radiate heat for 3 straight days after the fire actually dies. Talk about efficiency. All right, on to Section 3, generating unlimited free energy. Now, most people instantly default to solar when they think off-grid, but wind actually has a vastly higher kinetic energy density, and these 6 revolutionary turbines solve the usual problems of traditional horizontal blades. The noise, wildlife risks, and visual clutter. First up, the Tesla Atlas uses a 360-degree vertical axis to capture wind from any direction, which easily bypasses strict zoning laws. Then there's the SD Wind Energy SD6. It uses passive mechanics to survive extreme gales without fragile electronics. The Liam F1 uses an Archimedes spiral geometry to achieve near-perfect efficiency silently, like under 45 decibels. It's quieter than a conversation. Flower turbines have a tulip design that boost each other's power by 20% when you cluster them together. The Primus Air offers a rugged 400-watt plug-and-play microgeneration setup with a built-in regulator. And finally, the Icewind features an indestructible dual-blade architecture that absolutely thrives in 130-mile-per-hour winds. But let's talk about reliability, or capacity factor, basically how often a source is actually producing power. While solar PV sits around 20% and wind around 30%, a $50 DIY Pico hydro generator sits at a staggering 95%. It's honestly the holy grail of off-grid power. By using a simple run-of-river diversion, so no massive dams required, it provides constant power 24/7. In fact, it produces so much constant energy that instead of turning off your lights to save power, an electronic load controller just diverts your unused electricity to heat your water. Or just consider this number for a second: 18 months. Through a system known as the biomiler, a French forester named Jean Pain used the aerobic decomposition of 40 tons of wet wood chips to generate 140-degree water and methane gas continuously for 18 straight months. He literally powered his home, his stove, and even his car from a rotting pile of sticks. And as a bonus, it left behind incredibly potent fertilizer.
Okay, let's dive into Section 4, Water from Thin Air.
For this, we're returning to ancient wisdom but supercharging it with modern materials. Looking back at the timeline, you see ancient civilizations in 2000 BCE carving stone boulders into rain cisterns. Fast forward to the 1400s, and the Inca are weaving fabric screens to capture Pacific fog high up in the Andes. And now, in 2025, cutting-edge passive atmospheric water generation is breaking the boundaries of what's possible, like MIT developing a zero-power hydrogel to pull water straight from desert air. Seriously, those MIT engineers just achieved something incredible. They created a window-sized hydrogel containing lithium chloride and glycerol. This brilliant little device extracts safe, drinkable water at just 10% ambient humidity, which is essentially bone-dry desert air. Operating completely passively, it works in the driest places on Earth, and it regenerates every 24 hours using only the sun's heat. No moving parts, no grid electricity, just pure innovation. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, the barrier to independence. We traded a free local flow for the convenience of a monthly bill. Think about that for a second. Starting with the 1936 Rural Electrification Act, centralized high-voltage grids essentially subsidized convenience over autonomy. Over the course of just 2 generations, society lost the skills needed for localized self-sufficiency. We moved away from clever, local solutions like Pelton wheels and walked right into standardized monthly utility dependence. Now, the suppression of these alternative technologies isn't some grand, shadowy conspiracy. It's really just the result of rigid systems doing what they do. Modern supply chains are built on highly profitable 15-year replacement cycles, not 100-year permanent solution. Building codes mandate chemical wood treatments and strict mechanical HVAC standards, which leaves brilliant things like passive chimneys in a regulatory gray area. Appraisers literally cannot find comparables for round monolithic domes, simply because the financial system is designed for rectangular wooden boxes, which block standard mortgages. And out west, archaic prior appropriation water laws restrict even the most harmless run-of-river Pico hydro diversions. Throughout this whole explainer, we've seen a pretty massive contrast. On one hand, we have the machinery of dependency. This means paying $5,000 for fragile AC units, dealing with $200 annual service calls, and just accepting $400 monthly bills as a fact of life. But true autonomy, that relies on the physics of freedom, things like permanent thermal mass, 0-watt ventilation, and endless run-of-river flow. The blueprint for absolute off-grid independence is proven. It's elegant, and honestly, it's accessible to us right now. Which leaves us with one final, very provocative question to ponder. If the physics are free, why are we still paying for the machine? Why keep renting your life from a centralized grid when you can literally harness the physics of the universe to be truly independent? Thank you so much for exploring this with me.